5 things you need to know before hiring your clothing manufacturer.
Hatty ain't playing no games, ayy.
Legit, the hell you doing in my house?
Left the door unlocked.
Alright, anyways, since you here, let's get something shot then. Got the day. Alright, first things first. Appreciate everybody who tapped in with the last vlog. That thing is up over 1,000 views. I'm appreciating all the good feedback. We still gotta get them subscribers up. So before we get into anything, man, click that subscribe button so we can get into it. Alright everybody, today's vlog is dedicated to some things I wish I would have known before getting into this streetwear or clothing industry in itself. Let's start off with the 5 things you need to know before hiring your clothing manufacturer. Number 1, what is the minimum quantity order that the manufacturer requires you to purchase in the beginning? It could be 50, 100, 250, 500, something like that. I would recommend for a brand first starting out, I would keep it low as possible. 50 to 100 is a good number. Maybe if you do over 100, 200, you could split it into 2 different colorways, or 200 into 4 different colorways if your manufacturer is really on top of their game. But as many colorways as you can split the order into, the better. Don't ever let a manufacturer force you to get too many units that you're not ready for. Don't force yourself into a situation where you can't handle those units. You don't have anywhere to store those units. It's just all about your personal situation. But a general principle, if you're just a brand starting out, try to keep that minimum quantity as low as possible. You know, make sure that you search around and look around for the best manufacturer that's able to provide those minimum quantity orders for you. So, number 1, check on that minimum quantity order before you make any commitments to a clothing manufacturer. Alright man, all that talk about minimum quantity orders and got your boy a little hungry, so we on our way to get some food. But in the meantime, let's talk about the second thing you need to know before hiring your clothing manufacturer. What is the average turnaround time? Turnaround time meaning from start to finish, how long is it gonna take for your clothes to hit your doorstep? There's 3 parts to this: sampling process, production process, and the shipping time. There's a lot of factors that go into these 3 things depending on what you're ordering, the materials, the actual company that's producing it, the machinery or the equipment that is needed for them to produce those items. Even things such as, depending on the country that your clothes are actually being made in, they have certain holidays or times that they are not working. Pakistan has specific holidays, China has different holidays where they're just out of work. So certain seasons, you know, you really got to work around what's going on in those specific countries if you're getting your clothes made overseas. I would say 2 months, that's it. Anything over 2 months, it's kind of pushing it. A month and a half is like the average. A month, I would say, is a great turnaround time. If they have experience producing these items, same shirt or the hoodie, whatever product it may be, you've got it created 2 or 3 times, they know what to do, they can do it a little quicker. And don't be hesitant to give those manufacturers a deadline. If you want to put a contract in place, you can always do that. If you want to have a good faith agreement and just give them a proper deadline of when you would need your clothes by, you know, I'm not mad at that either. But always be aware of the average turnaround time dealing with your clothing manufacturer. Man, shout out to Foster's Grill, fire wings, fire everything. But anyways, let's get into the third thing you need to know before you hire your clothing manufacturer.
Oh, you got something in your beard, bro. You gotta do that over here.
Anyway, let's get into the third thing you need to know before hiring your clothing manufacturer. Those dreadful shipping prices. Man, when I tell y'all this is the worst part about running a clothing line, you wouldn't even imagine. Especially since COVID hit, prices been going up and up and up pretty much month by month, seems like. It goes by cost per kg. They measure the weight of the boxes in kilograms. So right now, the price is about $10 per kg. So imagine if you got a couple boxes coming in, the total weight is 90 kg. You're gonna pay $900 in shipping costs. And that might be 100 units, maybe 150 units. Think about that cost added onto your cost to produce the merch. That's cutting your profit margins almost in half, pretty much just about half. You gotta always calculate that in, but at the same time, like I said, that's only happened since COVID hit. Before COVID hit, the prices were a lot cheaper. You had a lot more options. Just an overall better situation before COVID, as everybody knows, for a lot of different industries. Definitely ask your manufacturers what all of the options are as far as the shipping costs, whether you can get it shipped by freight on a boat, by plane, if you can get it redirected to a different country before it comes to America to cut out some of the shipping costs. You know, there's several options. If you just got a little bit of knowledge and do your research, you can really start to cut down a little bit of the cost on what the shipping might be, so you can maximize your profit potential on your orders. Number 3, shipping costs. Alright y'all, so let's get into the fourth thing you're gonna need to know before hiring your clothing manufacturer. Let's talk about sample costs and sampling process. But when it comes to the cost, from our experience dealing with our manufacturer, they take the quoted price of the actual item and times it by 2. Say for this hoodie, they quote us a price of $12.50. They would just double that price, and that would be the sample cost. Sometimes when you're initially creating a sample, there might be a couple extra fees, like the embroidery setup fee. You might have a fee where you have to order certain things in bulk, like this elastic on the inside. You can't just order one strip of elastic. You're gonna have to order that in bulk before any sample gets made if you want this to be a part of the original sample. There can be different fees depending on what you're actually creating. As a base unit, you'll just have the quoted cost times 2. Let's get into the process. Depending on what kind of clothes you make and the style, it can get up to, 7-8 rounds of sampling. But for what we do, 3 steps is what you need to take. Scratch sample, revision sample, and production sample. So the scratch sample is just the first initial sample. It gives you an overall idea of the design, whatever style it is, screen print, embroidery. You get your measurements right from the tech pack. Just make sure they have an overall base idea of what the garment is. You really do want it to be as close to the final sample as possible in the beginning. You don't want to be actually taking too many revisions and too many details for them to get to the final product. At the end of the day, that first initial sample is just for you to get a good idea of what your garment is going to look like, feel like, how it fits. You're going to want to get all your detailed revisions off of the scratch sample. Anything that needs to be changed, any size that needs to be tightened up, fabric changes. If you don't like the way something feels, you need to be editing all of these things off of the scratch sample. Send those revisions back, and you'll get your revision sample back. This is the sample that's most important. You want to make sure that manufacturer is taking into account every single edit that you've noted down, top to bottom. If it was a measurement, if it was a material, if it was an embroidery problem, if it was a neck tag, hang tag, anything like that, you want to have that and make sure that they followed it to a T. You feel me? And if they have done that, you'll be ready for the production sample. Now, I'm gonna be honest, you're gonna have manufacturers that wanna pressure you after the first initial sample to place the order. Don't never fall for that pressure. Make sure that you are able to get your rounds of sampling in no matter what. That's super important. I need y'all to feel me on that. Do not let a manufacturer pressure you into ordering something after the first sample. You need a couple rounds of sampling. So once you've gotten your revision sample, you've accounted for them, making sure that they've paid attention to all of your detailed edits. Now you can pay attention to the final details as far as the hang tags, the packaging. Now, what's the packaging gonna look like? What's the hang tag gonna look like? What's it gonna feel like? You're gonna have a QR code on the back. You're gonna have your website. Just any little things that you're gonna do to enhance the overall quality and overall price point of the product. That's for the final production sample. Once you've gone through the first step, scratch sample, second step, revision sample, final step, production sample, now you'll be ready to start production. That wraps up the fourth step: sampling cost and sampling process. To the fifth and final, probably the most important thing you need to have in check before you hire your clothing manufacturer, and that's communication. You know, they say if you have no communication, then you have nothing. Let's talk about a couple key points. You want to make sure that the communication barrier, or the language barrier more or less, is something that you can actually deal with and get through. If you're dealing with your overseas manufacturers in China, Pakistan, it might be a little difficult to communicate your vision to that person. That's one step that you're gonna need to work on and make sure you feel comfortable with before you invest anything. You might have a company that actually has a translator for you to communicate with, but there's no guarantee that that translator is communicating the right thing to the person who's actually hands-on creating the brands. You wanna make sure that that's intact before you have any money invested. Third thing, which gets a little tricky, is say you feel comfortable with what you've communicated, you've gone through the sampling process, and you've gone through it giving them a deposit for the actual order. Now that you've given them the deposit, now the communication slows up. Now you're wondering what's going on. They're not giving you any updates. You're looking for pictures of the process to make sure everything's going accordingly. You're just not having good communication or timely communication anymore at that point. So that's a major thing that I would say that you need to discuss beforehand, or just fill it out before you start to invest any of the breads. Like I said, man, that fifth, final, and probably most important thing you need to know before hiring your clothing manufacturer is communication. I hope this video was pretty informative for y'all, and I hope it could help somebody not make the mistakes that we made when we were starting our brand, Hard Grind Streetwear. So I gotta get to this session. I need y'all to get up out of here so I can make these tunes, you feel? Five things.
Damn, boy, you good.
You need to know before you go broke. Five things you need to know before your ass go broke.